Hey, Teddy K here for Best Buy Plugin, and in this video review we take a look at the ASUS ZenFone 3. This is the company's latest flagship smartphone that is available to buy outright and unlocked. Now this model is a huge departure from last year's ZenFone 2, particularly on the physical design, where we have glass on both sides fused together with metal edges. Compared to the ZenFone 2 that you see here, the differences are pretty obvious from the start. There's a 5.5-inch IPS Plus 1080p display with the same soft keys at the bottom, and the back has a slightly protruding camera lens, and the volume buttons from last year have given way to a fingerprint sensor. Here's the sensor on the back, coupled with its tendency to be a fingerprint magnet. Now I found it to be pretty responsive, waking up the phone right away, as you can see. In case it matters to you, there's the headphone jack at the top, a dual SIM card slot that I'll open up later, and a USB-C port at the bottom, bringing this device in line with the newer industry standard. The power and volume buttons are on the other side, rounding out all the connections and buttons on this phone. One thing that vexed me about last year's model was the Zen UI software ASUS layered on top of Android. Too much bloatware and just too much going on generally. Now the company has scaled things back a bit here, but not as much as they really could have. There are still about 20 ASUS specific apps preloaded on the device, and while you can disable them, you can't really remove them. At least the 64 gigs of internal storage means you will have plenty of space for other things. Moving on, memory leaks that plagued the ZenFone 3's predecessor seem to be managed with included apps meant to boost performance by killing useless processes. Now, in my usage, I did notice a difference, but this is also something that becomes clearer over time. This is a refresher. A memory leak happens when an app or process consistently takes up a phone's memory, namely RAM in this case, and doesn't return any back, which can result in slower performance as a result. ASUS claims to have fixed this inherently, but the inclusion of two apps to manage RAM usage indicates that whatever they've done may not be bulletproof, so you get those manual options to do it yourself. Seemingly to add some peace of mind, ASUS added a ZenFone Care app that offers direct contact and an FAQ among other things to better understand how the phone works. It'll be interesting to see how this thing evolves over time, but it is there if you need it. Of the apps coming from ASUS, I liked Splendid for changing the color temperature of the screen, with the blue light filter in particular being especially useful at night, but you can customize it to look the way you want. As I get into the camera, I do want to note the fingerprint sensor in the settings, where it can be used to shoot with one tap or launched at any time with a double tap. Last year's ZenFone 2 impressed me with its underrated camera performance, and the ZenFone 3 holds its own well too. As I launch the camera here, I'm just going to show you the interface and how it looks. Not that different really from last year. The different options for shooting, there's 20 different modes that you can shoot with. But the one that I like the most is manual, and I generally like this mode the most on any phone, and the reason why is because you have greater control over how to compose the image. A easier way to do this is using the HDR Pro mode that the ZenFone 3 has, but this is one that I would recommend you try just to see what kind of shots you can get, because there's just so much control that you have. Now I'm going to show some sample images that I've shot in various modes here to give you an idea of what the phone is capable of. It's not going to be quite on par with a flagship device, but it's pretty good nonetheless. Remember that SIM card slot that I mentioned earlier, and the reason why I'm opening it is because it's dual SIM. So there's two micro SIMs that can fit in the tray, or one micro SIM with a micro SD memory card in case you want to expand on the 64 gigs of internal storage. Very cool feature that not every phone has, especially when you're traveling. And that's the ASUS ZenFone 3. For Best Buy Plugin, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.